7:01. And we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everybody for making it in the snow. That appeared in like 45 minutes. So the first agenda item is to approve the agenda. So I have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that one.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to add or change at all? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Raise your hand. We're good. Oh, yeah, there we go. Public input and announcements. Does anybody from the public would like to make a statement? Okay, thank you. Let me skip that one. All right, approval of minutes from 3/6/24.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion. Does anybody see anything that stands out they'd like to change? Everybody good? Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor, raise or say aye.
Aye.
Good. Excellent. All right, Tinmouth update.
It's got Jen and Jeff.
It's actually just one mistake.
Just-
Okay, just one.
Right, that's great. I'm Jen Tift. I teach 5th and 6th grade here at Tinmouth School. So I wanted to start by saying, so it all started with an email. So it's kind of a running joke around here for us. Somewhere in the neighborhood of last, I don't know, February or something like that, I decided I was going to clean out my thousands of emails. And I actually read a few that were just kind of hanging out there. So one of them invited me to apply to something called the Ecology School, which is up at Riverbend Farm in Saco, Maine. So they were doing a summer institute, free for teachers, a week long, hang out on the farm, learn about ecology, stuff like that. So I applied. Nelson Jakeway, for those of you that know Nelson, Nelson was on the founding board of this way back when. So he had sort of put a bug in my ear a few years ago, like, hey, you should probably apply for something like this. You would like this. And somehow I got on an email list, so all of a sudden I applied, got in. So I got to go to Maine for a week this summer. We started with ecology lessons, the ABCs of ecology. We did macroinvertebrate work. We went over to the ocean and looked at different ecology, different wetland pieces over there. One of the cool things about that, I think there was 40 teachers from around the country. One of the cool things about it was being in a room with like-minded people trying to all have the same goal of getting kids outside and doing education with them outside. One of the pieces that you do while you're there is you create a plan, a poster, plan, unit, activity, something, using the resources that they have there, creating new resources, creating activities, creating, all the materials, things that you need. Then the posters get hung around the room and you go on a gallery walk. You take a stack of Post-its with you on the gallery walk and you walk around and you put Post-its on anybody's poster. Oh, I did something like this. Here, you should try this. Oh, here, I have a resource for you. Oh, this is a great idea. I'm stealing it, because that's what teachers do. So whatever, but that's kind of the coolest thing. You come home with a poster. This is not mine, by the way, because I didn't take a picture of my own poster. I just brought it home. But you bring home a poster with all sorts of information, your plan, plus resources from, around the country. So that was my summer. That led to, while we were up there, they said, oh, for any of you that are close enough, we have some grant money that we can use to bring kids up here to a day trip. We can even do like overnight trips. And I thought, I wonder if I could make this happen. So I'm texting Maureen while I'm there. Went in and talked to the people about the grant money. They're like, oh, we can make that happen for you. Texting Maureen, what do you think? She said, go for it. So the catch with the grant money was you had to use slots of time that were not the time that everybody wanted. So the most popular time they had available was, like a couple weeks into the school year. So a couple weeks into the school year, we loaded up 5, 6 on a bus and went to Maine for 3 days. What we did, the kids did activities, they had games, they learned about food growth, food consumption, they had nighttime lessons, learning about animals in the woods. They did the ABCs of Ecology, kids version, that I had done in the summer, adult version. They had lessons on the stars at night, all sorts of cool stuff, and of course fun and activities too. All right, so then that led to, later in the fall, that led to an email from me getting an invitation to be an ambassador to the Winter Teachers Institute, which happened in January. And what they were looking for was for me to go up there, spend the weekend with, a bunch of like-minded teachers and do this, talk about what I do, right? So I was pretty excited about it. You can tell when I'm talking, I'm really excited about it. So I invited Jen to apply and go with me. She got in. So we both went up there for the weekend. We did ecology work outside. We did, the river work, all sorts of stuff. And had the opportunity to create a poster, a plan, or whatever. So we had been talking about what we wanted to do whole school, because we love those whole school multi-age grouping activities. So we decided we were going to focus ours on the solar eclipse, the upcoming solar eclipse. So we spent quite a bit of time on that, and now we have kind of a plan to do some multi-age grouping the morning of the solar eclipse. All right, so I also applied last spring to go on the Marcel Melisira, which is the UVM research vessel. It's the brand new research vessel for UVM. I believe Senator Leahy had something to do with it, which is why it's named after his wife, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So the flooding happened in July, and the vessel was not able to travel from wherever it was being built to Lake Champlain. So this got postponed, but this summer, they just pushed it back a year, but this summer I'm gonna go spend a week on this research vessel all over Lake Champlain, doing all sorts of watershed, water ecology, water quality testing, basically stuff that I can bring back to the kids. It ties in really nicely with things like our Trout in the Classroom project, the water quality testing we do around town, and I think a couple years ago we did a presentation for the board. Yes, okay, thanks. Yeah, like a video presentation the kids did for just talking about the water quality testing in town. Years ago, when I taught at a different school, I was able to bring a group of kids on the old Melisira ship or vessel and do that water quality studying over at South Lake. So I'm hoping that this leads to an invitation to a field trip. That's my plan. All right, so what else have I been doing? Another email that I applied to for another free for Teachers PD was to the Center for Civic Education. So they got a huge grant and research involved. I don't really know all the details, but anyway, they got a huge grant. And so they they wanted to do 3 years, 3 cohorts, 3 years worth of research education on We the People civic education for all students. So they were looking for people to be in that first year of that first cohort, that first year, and they would bring us down to Boston for a week, and do all sorts of civic education work with the We the People curriculum. So we went down to the University of Massachusetts, Boston. We kind of hung out in the Edward Kennedy Senate chamber that he built down there. We had guest lecturers talking about history, talking about civics. David Hudson, who's like this kind of cool lawyer from the First Amendment Center in Nashville, Tennessee, he was one of the guest lecturers. And I didn't even know I was interested in law cases until he started telling all about First Amendment cases, and they're just fascinating. We also did some field trips around Boston, the Old South Church, Old South Meeting House. And then I was able to bring the curriculum. They gave me the curriculum back. It tied really nicely with the new TCI curriculum that I was teaching this year. So I was able to do both pieces at the same time. And the culmination for this is a congressional hearing. So we've been doing all sorts of practice work with congressional hearings because we're going to do a big one, but we've been doing practice ones like, which is the best candy bar to represent our country? And which is the best board game? So they're learning those public speaking skills and backing up their point, the view, their reasoning, using pieces. Like one of the kids said the other day, well, this particular candy should be a representative of our country because it was made in another country, and then it was brought over here, and it started small in this one area, and then it spread out, just like the colonists did when they came over here. And I was like, yes, that's what we were looking for. So anyway, so we have a congressional hearing coming up for that. And I'm pretty excited because Sabrina McDonough from Shrewsbury is going to go to cohort 2 this summer down in Boston. And speaking of cohort 2, so I met Martha Dice, who's the Vermont Social Studies Education Coordinator. Yeah, it does that. It's the Vermont Social Studies Education Coordinator. And so at the end of the week in Boston, she invited me to be the mentor for Vermont. So this past weekend, I was able to travel down to Washington, D.C. for mentor training, basically to kind of get ready for the new cohort this summer in Boston. So the training was twofold. The first was, I have to look at my pictures to remind me. The first was sorry, just lost my thought. Well, I know what the second one was. The second one was looking at the curriculum through a lens of social emotional learning and trauma-informed education, and how to present to the students and how to work with the students through that lens, teaching history at the same time. And I'm forgetting what the first part was, but it was really important. Anyway, that is the end of what I have, but I'm happy to talk about it more if you want to catch up with me at another time.
Thanks, Jen. I really appreciate it. I think it's like one of those things that we could have teachers that just do the same thing every year and it's just all rote. And I really appreciate expanding the opportunities for our kids and being able to do all this stuff.
Right, got that other part. I practiced it a bunch of times too.
Does anybody else want to make any comments or anything? It's okay.
Jen, I just want to say it's really impressive how you've networked and sought out professional development for yourself that obviously you're using to enrich and engage the children in your class. So it's really great.
These are some super cool things.
Yeah, I want to do it.
I'm pretty excited. Like, oh, it's free PD, and I get to go places? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Jen, was the main trip, were there other schools there at the same time also, or was it just Tinmouth students?
Nope, there was another school there from, it's called the German School from Boston.
Cool.
Yeah, they were there at the same time.
Yeah.
So we didn't have much interaction with them. And, like a little bit, but it was really designed to be a program for us and then a program for them.
Is there an opportunity is that a grant that's available to the same school yearly or like again, or was it like a one-time?
They're funded mostly through, they have a lot of funding, but their big donors are Poland Springs and LL Bean. So it really hinges on, what they told me was it really hinges on donors. So the kids spent some time writing thank you notes to go to the donors, and I wrote a letter about the impact, and so hopefully there's more money available.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yep.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving on to E4 Risk Management Update, and E1 Audit Report.
Risk management update is a really easy one. This was one we've had this E4 risk management policy for a while, but I don't know that we've actually spent a lot of time with it at the board level. The policy itself calls for an annual report. So while it's quick and simple, it is in policy and worth bringing up. We've had some conversations around this in the past, absolutely, where folks are wondering, what are we doing to make sure that we are not inviting risk on the district? And really, a lot of this has to do with financial risk. So thinking about insurance and coverage, and are we doing things that have us exposed to some sort of liability, if that makes sense. The attachment that we have for you that was in your board packet gives a little background for VSBA. VSBA is the insurance company provider that we work with that works with pretty much every school in the state. That's the bulk of what they do is for schools. So we have policies through VSBA, and we've had a really good relationship with them for a long time. Those things cover our regular activities. Those things cover our facilities. If you remember about a year, when we had our boiler at the high school flood, that's covered under VSBA. So when things are happening to our facilities, if somebody were to be injured on our property, things like that, even thinking about field trips, coverage extends there. So VSBA has a really good history of working with schools and really understanding the needs of districts and providing that for us. We have a couple of other things that are, I think, worth knowing that they offer us. VSBA offers us the ability to really quickly pick their brains if we have any things that are a little bit out of the norm that we want to engage in. So say a PE teacher said, oh gosh, wouldn't it be cool if we could build a little skate park ramp in the parking lot and we could do some activities with our kids there, right? We go, oh, great idea, hold that thought. We call up VSBA and we talk to them, and they give us guidance and feedback around what would or would not be covered. There was a great opportunity our kids had to go to see a larger maple sugaring operation and to actually engage in some of the activities on site. And we went, oh no, wow. What if the property is not appropriately maintained and a limb falls while they're walking through the woods? And VSBA says, okay, do this, you're covered. So as long as we are making sure that we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's, we've had some things we call VSBA up and they say, there's no way you're going to be covered if you do that. So don't do that. An interesting one we talked about was a coin drop. If we did a coin drop at the high school, folks who come into that circle, yeah, let's set up a coin drop there. That actually had a lot of exposure for us if somebody were to get injured, somebody's foot gets run over or something like that. So that's the type of thing that we'd have to say, no, we just can't do that. That doesn't help. So that's one huge thing that VSBA offers for us. A second thing which is very helpful is if outside organizations want to use our facilities. So we have some things in place where folks can put in a request to use facilities. If it is a school event, it's covered with our regular insurance policy. If it is a non-school event, folks are required to have their own insurance and submit proof of that to us to be able to use the facility. VSBA offers a little bit of a stopgap insurance. So somebody like, who's our basketball, not our teams, but it slips my mind. AAU, yeah. AAU is an organization that has insurance and they have no problem providing that for us. But if we had somebody from the community who was going to do something that was a little smaller, they weren't a large organization, VSBA can offer an extension of insurance to them for maybe a couple $100 per event. So it does allow some folks who don't have a large organization or means to still access our buildings and to provide appropriate coverage. So with all of that said, we tend to be pretty, we limit our liability very well, I feel, with VSBA and those supports because we're always exercising those supports. So
Is there any alternative to VSBA? Like, are they pretty much the only?
That's a good question.
Insurance in town for
Stan,
us?
do we have to go with VSBA?
Well, we don't have to go with this, but, they don't have every school district in the state.
Yeah.
But this is a self-insured fund, so this is what they do. They
Mhm.
service school districts only.
Yeah.
So if you used an outside agency or whatever, you may not get the same kind of quality of service. that
I just
get
know we
from
had
them.
a difficult time with their underwriters for the boiler. And I don't imagine that another insurance agency would be better at it. It just seemed that we had some troubles and that them having to go through like 2 underwriters to be able to finally finish the boiler payments and all that stuff.
That did become complicated because we were no longer dealing just with VSBA.
Yeah.
We were dealing with VSBA, who was dealing with their insurer.
Yeah, it was like Allied or
Yeah.
somebody, another big one.
Right, that would, where if we were dealing directly with VSBA,
Yeah.
the response time would have probably been a lot quicker. We were doing it, third-party claims. It took, longer than it should have. There's no doubt about that. One issue that had happened is Tim, being new, didn't realize he could have an avenue to complain. And once I found out that it was being, it was getting delayed, I contacted the head of, head of the VSBA organization, and the response all of a sudden sped up. Things got done after that.
Yeah. Once they knew things weren't going well from our perspective, VSBA was still really responsive.
Okay, great.
No, that's a good question. Other questions? We do have audit on here as well, and we had attached our audit letters. Stan, do you want to give the quick summary overview of those?
Sure, there were 2 letters that were from the auditors to the school board. One was a management letter, and another one, a letter was basically stating what their audit was about, what it entailed, and whether or not they met any kind of difficulties during the audit, and things that they looked at. The letter, which is the first letter, which is like about 4 pages long, basically deals with accounting estimates, and them stating that the estimates that we use in our financial reporting met the standards, whether or not there were any difficulties that they encountered in performing the audit. Again, they said there were no difficulties in dealing with management, which would be the business office and central office. And if you basically go through reading all this, again, there were no issues that they're reporting to you in this letter. The management letter, again, it basically stating that they did a financial audit report, said that they gave an unmodified opinion, which means there was nothing that they found to say that the financial reports were not in compliance with governmental auditing standards. And they also stated that they did not find that there were no findings to report to you directly that they found wrong with either our internal control system or our way that we process payments, receipts, or anything else related to the accounting functions of the office, of the school district. This audit also included an audit of the grants, which they do a separate audit called a single audit. Again, there were no findings in regards to the single audit with the federal grants that we received. We received, obviously, with the ESSER funds, substantially more activity with grants this past year than what we're normally used to, so it was a little bit of a strain on the office, and anybody involved in the procurement process, but everybody met, following our procedures that were in place to process federal purchases. They found no problems with that. So I'll just take time out that this is, it really is a team function in this whole process. You can have the greatest controls in place and all the greatest written procedures in place, which you can find on the website, but those do you no good if you don't have the quality people doing that. and following those and
care about
enforcing
following
those
them.
and care about following them. So I mean, so you got Mike and Karen in the business office handling most of the purchasing. You've got Chad with payroll. You've got principals that are in charge of their buildings and in charge of their staff for purchasing. There are administrative assistants who really get involved in the purchasing at the school level, following things and making sure that things are done correctly. So it is a complete, team effort throughout the district to ensure that, we're doing things correctly and that there were no findings. I think it's a good reflection on the people that we have.
And Stan, if they were to give recommendations, it would be in those letters.
Correct.
Right? So, and there really weren't even recommendations, which we've had in the past. We haven't had substantial findings that we've had to share with you. But I think interesting too that we didn't have a lot of recommendations. I think that is a really clean audit and huge testament to Stan, Karen, Mike, and Chad in the business office, who are Stan's right that everybody contributes, but they're that last stop. They're the folks that if something looks a little bit off, they say, hey, we need to look at this, we need to maybe go back and do things a little differently to make sure it's done right. With all those federal funds, wow, that grant funding is great, but it puts a burden on the business office because that's just more paperwork for all of them to do. So some of the wonderful things we were able to do in district with that funding the last several years, we wouldn't have been able to do if we didn't have a business office who could shoulder the extra work. And sometimes we don't see that. You see the added positions, or you see some of the, purchasing all these great outdoor classroom things. You see that, but you don't see the stack of paperwork that is now 3 times as tall on their desks. And I think it's worth, thanking them to get us here to have a good audit.
The complete audit, which is well over 100 pages, can be found on our website. If you go to the dashboard, click on business office, you'll come up all the audit reports probably for the last, since we merged, will be
Got
out
a lot on there,
on
yeah.
that website. So the 23 audit is out there for you to look at if you want to. It's over 100 pages. If you got any questions, just feel free to either email me or call me. That would be fine. But it is a lengthy report. Really And the important part is that, we're using numbers from last year, but the audit isn't getting done until this year's almost over with. But one thing that's good is that they didn't make any changes to our numbers. So all the numbers we used for the budgeting process did not change. Those stayed the same. We still had the same fund balance that we were working with for the FY25 budget and beyond.
Am I mistaken? Is it that normally when we do the surplus funds part of the voting, normally do we have to wait for this audit for that money to actually go in?
Right.
This year it's going to be a little different.
They officially say that the numbers are great,
Right.
and yes, then we can make the
Last year's
transfer.
town meeting vote, we just got that surplus that we can use for our building fund with this report. This year's town meeting vote, we can use now.
Right, because we
And
asked
that's why
them
we
to,
changed
from
it, yeah.
past surplus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll actually, between now and the end of the year, we'll be putting, $550,000 into the building fund. $250,000 for last year, and then $300,000 that the voters approved for this year, which was existing.
And that's
surplus.
good to know by the time we get down to buildings and grounds
This
bids.
is the next
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions or anything?
I
like
just
that?
wondered, Stan, if the auditing process and just the whole system process was easier under the consolidation than when you had the 5 separate districts.
Oh, yeah, it's instead of,
It helps.
instead of doing 6 reports and having 6 separate audits, it's just one big audit with one big report.
And you have one system that everybody's using instead
Right,
of,
we don't-
this person does
Different
this way,
schools.
yeah. So that's good. 1 plus.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, the next thing is building and grounds bids.
So actually, while we were just talking about building fund stuff, a lot of these bids don't touch the building fund. So I think that's just worth for transparency's sake noting that. We could start with any of them. We do have, maybe, let's start with the lunch fund one. That might be the easier one. So we had a packet of lunch fund bids, and who's on buildings and grounds? Josh and Nick and Carol?
And
Okay.
Doug would be the other one.
And Doug. Tim started getting really sick at the end of the day today. He was intending to be here, but he got sick and said, I just can't make it. So I said I would cover what I could cover, and then buildings and grounds, knowing that you discussed all of these Monday, we'll try and get all the questions answered, but if we have pending questions, I can bug Tim about those. So if you look at the lunch fund bids, we have, and Stan might be able to help out on this one actually too. We have 4 bids for things to come out of the lunch fund. So this is a fund that really should only be used for things that have to do with our lunch program. Well, why are we bringing some of these bids to you if they're only $3,000? Because these are unbudgeted. We have the lunch fund, but this is not something that we had budgeted and put out to voters and been approved by voters. So we need to have the board weigh in on these. One of them is high enough that we'd be bringing it to you anyway because of the total. So something for new board members to know, any single expenditure that's over $15,000 per board policy we bring to you, whether we had budgeted it or not. So even if we budgeted it, we would bring it to you because it's over that threshold. The state of Vermont allows us to set our board policy up to 40,000, but our policy is 15. So anything over 15 we do bring.
And then,
Policy folks might want to think about if you want to review that policy and change that.
and then I was going to say, to
Yeah.
back up even 2 minutes earlier, that ends up on Stan's audit.
Yep. So we're using the lunch fund, a big purchase for lunch tables. And I don't know when the last time we bought lunch tables was, Stan. It's probably been a while.
Yeah, there used to be a time where schools tried to purchase
One a
at least
year.
one table a year or whatever, and that kind of stopped prior to COVID. So it's been, there's some that are in very need of a repair, especially at the high school.
And when we did budget building, Stan and I going around and meeting with principals, that was a common theme we were hearing from everybody. Oh gosh, if we could buy a lunch table or two. When they cost $2,000 each, it's really hard for Tinmouth to say, well, where can I find $2,000? So the lunch fund is a great place to start looking to do that for the whole district. So first bid from the lunch fund would be, Tim's recommendation is to go with School Outfitters to take advantage of their competitive pricing, years of experience, and availability. So School Outfitters would be a total of $27,920 to purchase a bunch of 14 lunchroom tables that would go to, each of our schools would get some of those 14.
Well, this one would be, I think, is it Mill River, Wallingford, and Clarendon for the tables?
It is.
Oh, that's a good question. Do we not have any?
That's what it says.
Well, I don't know if it was, Shrewsbury was involved in it.
Yeah, and it's just-
Tinmouth said they did not need any new tables.
Okay. Yeah.
They were getting the dishwasher.
So Shrewsbury's probably in here even though they're not
Might
listed.
list it.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Shrewsbury weren't. Okay. Do we want to get a motion to accept the bid from School Outfitters and then discussion?
I'll make a motion to accept the bid from School Outfitters.
I have a clarifying question.
Okay.
Hold on, we'll get a second, then we'll talk.
I'll second.
Nick and Carol. Okay, so discussion. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Great, thanks. I guess if anyone doesn't mind kind of walking me through the process, so like these are already been, the committee already kind of said like, okay, this sounds good, we're gonna now take it to the board. So it's already been discussed on that level.
Yes, correct,
Okay,
correct.
great. And budgeted already?
Not budgeted.
Okay.
So this is, Stan, do you want to talk about how that happens with the lunch fund, why we have money to use that's not been budgeted?
That At the end of last year, we had a little over, I want to say around 215,000 in our lunch program. That's not normal. We usually don't make money in the lunch program. But because of all the COVID money that we've been receiving from the feds, that money started to accumulate. And by rule, Child Nutrition or AOE does not like to see you accumulate funds in your lunch program. They want you to reinvest into the program. So we've already gotten a letter from them stating that we've got too much money in our program and that we've got to come up with ways to invest that money. And each year we'll have to tell them, or eventually we'll have to come up with a plan sometime by the end of April to let them know how we plan on investing in our lunch programs at all our schools.
And it's basically the difference between how much we get paid for a lunch and how much we charge for the lunch? And that is the difference of that's where the surplus comes from? Like how much it costs us to feed?
Yeah, prior to COVID, we were getting, let's say, from a student meal, maybe $3. When COVID hit, that reimbursement from the feds was around $4, and it was a windfall for us, $4.25, 50 cents. I think this year it's up to, a little over $5. And so I don't expect that to continue. And plus, with the increase of food costs, our food service management companies throughout the state are getting hit hard with contracts they signed prior to COVID, which was our company also, and they can't do anything about it. So they have to stick to that contract and to that price that they agreed to in the contract. So I would expect to see a bigger increase in costs when we go out to bid next year.
Which means a smaller fund to reinvest into the program probably in the future. Back to how things.
And it seemed, and before it seemed like basically like because Tinmouth and Shrewsbury don't use the same, they don't have the food service, and it seemed like the budget surplus from the other districts helped buffer any costs that were up in these two schools, right, generally?
Right, and also, prior to COVID, we also had in the general fund budget around a subsidy of about $40,000 to support those two programs, because of, a big profit in the other three schools was never really a guarantee. Normally it was a lot smaller than what we've been getting after COVID.
Good questions.
I have another question. It's probably an obvious one, but I'm not on buildings and grounds. But
Totally fine.
I noticed that the cheaper one is like $1,000 cheaper, more than $1,000 cheaper per table. Is the quality? Are they comparable? Or are they going to hold up? Is what I'm asking.
The kind of crazy thing is, all of these companies are pretty much selling the same table.
Really?
They really are about all the same. Yeah. So it's not we're getting half the quality table. Yeah. And interestingly, there are a lot of places like just these folding chairs here. You could find one company selling a folding chair for $50 and one for $100. So, good question though. Yeah, no, we're not compromising on that.
I don't know if we actually have a lot of bids right now. I think partially was because we didn't have a lot of buildings and grounds we missed a couple meetings. So I think right now there's more bids this is more than what is normally happening. So this is not a normal circumstance where like here's a bunch of things.
The last meeting was October.
Yeah.
So
not ideal.
Yeah.
Really good meeting.
We're catching up, which is good. You want to call the question?
Yes. So now we're going to go for, the motion is to accept the bid from School Outfitters. And would we like a yay? Everybody in favor?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't say that right. Just the vice chair.
Adcraft. Okay. The next two, let's do them separately. Why not? Next, we've got a new proofer warmer for the Wallingford kitchen, and the recommendation is to contract with Adcraft to take advantage of their pricing. Motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
The connection is the same. Oh, never mind.
Any
discussion? All right, everybody want to, yes? Got it.
Awesome.
Unanimous.
Next up, we've got another proofer warmer, but for Mill River. And again, recommendation is to contract with AdCraft for their competitive pricing.
And I'd make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? No? All right, all those in favor? Everybody?
Then the last one is new dishwasher for Tinmouth. And Tim's recommendation is to contract with Rutland Appliance, again, pricing.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Yeah, this one is, it no longer can get serviced. It's basically just too old.
And we did have some discussion about that on Monday. The new one will fit in the space, it will work appropriately, and it will be newer.
Better. Better.
Can't you use
One
in
that's
local
there.
companies, and that's nice.
Right.
Yeah, good.
All right, any more discussion? No? All right, all those in favor?
So those are our lunch fund ones, fantastic. And then I think it might make sense to talk special ed next. So again, this is not building fund. This is some surplus funds that we have in special ed. So the request, again, unbudgeted, so we're bringing it to you because it was not part of our budget that was formally approved by voters. But we would like to ask the board permission to use these unused special ed funds for a couple of updates to our foundations building, which is we run a specialized special ed program out of the old Rutland South Supervisory Union office that is right there by the Clarendon Elementary School. So when I say foundations, that's what I'm talking about. So the first one we have here is for a PA system that, correct me if I'm wrong, Coral, does this connect the foundations building to Clarendon?
That is
for the purposes of PA?
That those two buildings would be united, yep.
Yeah, and the phone system to integrate, where right now the phone system doesn't integrate.
No.
So if there's an incident, if there's an incident in the elementary school right now, the foundations building would not know about it.
You have to dial out to
Without-
get to them,
right.
which is a little awkward, where else you can dial an extension, you're done,
announcements
yeah,
or-
yeah. So recommendation would be to use First Choice, and we solicited bids from other individuals. They did not respond. Because it's only $7,888, we're fine with just one bid, but we wanted to let you know that we did try to solicit bids. First Choice is who we actually worked with in our schools to upgrade to E911 compliant phones, 6 years ago or whenever we did that. So we've had good experience with them too. So that's the recommendation, and we'd look for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we
Okay.
approve that bid.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Next, special ed, we are looking at roofing and siding, and this is just something that unfortunately, when we did that project, roofing and siding were not part of the project, the scope of the work. And after we had the work done and we were using the building, Tim was just getting here. Tim did some surveys of the building and said, wow, I can't believe the siding wasn't part of the scope of the work. It's unfortunate that that building is very nice on the inside, but the siding is in disrepair. I think there are not just aesthetic problems with it, there are heating problems with it. It's not a very nice building envelope. You're losing heat, which is unfortunate. So I think there's really good reason to use the surplus while we have it to make that building, it's an investment that I think will pay off long-term. So recommendation is to use Randy Van Gilder. Again, we solicited bids and we did not hear back from other general contractors. We only received one bid.
This is going to be a common theme.
Yes. So I would ask for a motion to contract with Randy.
I'll make
the motion.
Oh, beat me to it.
Have it. Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is that price for the whole?
It's for the siding and the roof. Yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's
Just like my
not
roof.
bad. It's not, yeah.
That happens during the summer?
Coral, do you know that?
It says project needs to be completed by 6:30.
Okay.
Yeah, I had spoken with Tim part because, so we have to time this correctly because we do have students accessing that building. And when you're talking about roofing and siding, you need to not have the kids in the building. So that gets tricky. We are looking at April vacation, I believe, as a possible, some sort of starting. And then after that, I'm not sure what the plan was. But the last I heard is at some point during that April vacation, if everything went well this evening, looked like a good amount of work could be accomplished, so we'll see.
Did we just vote on that?
We
did.
We're,
No.
We're
Is that still
We're
discussion?
discussing.
Okay.
Discussing.
Sorry, I wrote down my note too fast.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor? Great, it's everybody.
So the last one would be heat pump. And really, the heat pump is to address being able to use that facility over the summer. A conversation that maybe Tim had with B&G on Monday was trying to shift all our buildings to have some air conditioning. We're finding more and more that the summers are a little more humid than they used to be, and we're finding that the building upkeep is becoming challenging. We're finding mold, not scary, dangerous black mold. Let me start there. We're finding that there are issues that are mildew and things like that are popping up over the summer, and it's just a lot of work for our folks who are already working hard over the summer to try and tackle all of that too. So thinking about the future, that I think heat pumps are a reasonable investment in long-term maintenance of our buildings. So
The other thing we talked about was that the
Yep.
heating in that building is not terribly
Yeah.
efficient, so
Yeah.
this would act as a backup heat in the winter.
Because is
and-
it
I mean-
oil there?
It is.
It's liquid propane.
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 That one is
Yeah.
propane.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
One side of the building heats really well, almost to the point of overheating, and the other side gets nothing.
Nothing.
And so that's been challenging.
and the more days that we're seeing in the 20s and 30s, heat pumps are going to be far more efficient than oil or propane or things like that. You know, if we're seeing tons of negative days, we might want to think more about
What did they
oil or
say? He said
propane.
13 degrees, they're good to 13, so.
Clarification, modern heat pumps go a lot lower than that. Their efficiency does eventually drop off,
Yeah.
but as every year goes by, they are better and better and better.
And I
Makes sense.
would bet we can come up with a really good control where when it's real cold, we're on propane. When it's not, we're on heat pump. So we'll get the maximum efficiency.
Right, you find the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, and that's a good conversation to go, why do we need two heat sources? I have two heat sources at my house because you do get better efficiency when you can do that.
Well, not only that, things break.
True.
It's nice to
And
have.
that's
it's nice-
actually one of the things, is that they have broken already, even though they're pretty new.
So having some redundancy is nice.
Yeah. So Tim's recommendation is to contract with TDT Mechanical to take advantage of better pricing for a heat pump. So I'd ask for a motion for that.
I'll make a motion.
Second? Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor? Great, unanimous.
So that wraps up our special ed ones. So we have, I'll do the IAQ grant one. The IAQ grant, indoor air quality is what IAQ stands for. We've talked about this a little bit at Buildings and Grounds leading up to this. Because we had put this out for bid and we got no bids. And this was a project that was large enough that we put it in the Rutland Herald to solicit bids. And we reach out to vendors to try and solicit bids too. And first round, we got nothing, which was a little frustrating because we had great grant funding that we could use. So Tim worked with Efficiency Vermont to try and figure out what kind of flexibility we have with this grant funding, and with no vendors actually submitting bids, what could we do? Interestingly, he came up with a plan that, while it is only it's grant funding, so it doesn't impact our taxpayers. He came up with a plan that would accomplish what we were trying to accomplish at a fraction of the grant funding that was available, and we couldn't get people to bid on, which I think is a testament to Tim's ability to kind of problem solve and think outside the box and really try not just go, let's buy the biggest, newest, latest it's expensive, but let's get the best. He's really thinking very carefully about how do we do this work and do it in a way that is cost effective. So he was able to piece together a project that at Tinmouth would put heat pumps that would help better manage the temperatures in here and also provide that summer relief from humidity, which is, I think.
And there's also going to be air exchangers as well, which would have been the thing that heat pumps alone wouldn't have done. So it's doing the ventilation as well.
Yeah, so actually
Everything-
getting us more than we were going to get for $300,000 project, which is crazy.
Everything except for this room.
Yeah, right, yeah. So Tim's recommendation is to contract with TDT Mechanical.
Which is incorrect.
Oh, okay.
It
Oh,
is a
was it
con- it's a
Control
con-
Tech?
It's a combination of all three of those.
Oh, you're right.
Each one of those
We
is its
discussed
own
that on
thing.
Monday.
Sorry, and I'm reading this, thank you for stopping me there, because I'm just going on autopilot. This is not three separate bids on this document.
Right.
What Efficiency Vermont was able to provide Tim was, if you can general contract the project yourself, you can pull in different vendors to do the different pieces. So that was the flexibility that they were able to give us. So actually, we are asking for the board to make a motion that we contract with Control Tech, TDT Mechanical, and Wilbur Electrical. Those are the three main pieces of the project, to get the air exchanger, to get the heat pump, to get the controls, so that it's all tied in together.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
It's only fresh in my head because we just talked about it.
Monday, yep. Motion?
I'll make a motion that we go forth with those three contractors.
Second? Great. Right, any more discussion? I'm just really glad that this worked out.
Yeah.
That was going to be a lot of money on the table left.
One-
We did-
Question about it. So these companies here, just because the heat pumps and also the ventilation system will need upkeep and annual maintenance, almost certainly?
Yes.
Would they provide that? Would that be an ongoing thing, or is that something that would be done by maintenance
A
here?
fair bit of that we do in-house. And if we need support, we reach out for support when we need it. But we try to do some of that in-house,
Because
absolutely.
We
Tim
also-
also is a heat pump installer.
Okay.
So he has
Just-
experience doing it. That was a question that I asked in Buildings and Grounds, just
Yeah,
thinking
they're
about.
only as good as their upkeep.
Right.
Okay.
One other notable is that all of this grant money is on a very tight timeline.
Yep.
And it does have to be finished by June 30th.
Well, this one we get to have, I think that's when it has to at least start by or something, because it's September, the money has to be gone in September, basically, I think, right, for the ESSER stuff?
No, this is,
Or is
This is through, this is through
Not ESSER.
Efficiency Vermont.
Then what am I talking about?
yeah.
But I did hear that September.
I haven't seen the final grant agreement, but the last grant we did, which was an IAQ grant with Efficiency Vermont, was through September 30th. They don't usually follow this at June 30th of,
Right. But it is,
I still
to Nick's
remember
point,
it being
has
a
to
very-
basically to start now.
Yeah.
It is a tight, yeah, you do have to have everything in line, ready, done by September 30th.
And we did put this in the Herald a second time, breaking it out into separate projects for bids too. So that's what kind of took a little bit of time too. We did the initial one, didn't get bids. We had to spend about a month or so working to get some flexibility and figure out what to do. Then we had to have another 30-day bid period to have it in the Herald and, follow all that criteria. So that's taken a while, but good that we're getting there. Okay, last one.
We didn't vote.
Oh, we didn't vote, okay, thank you.
Right, we were just
Did
in
it again.
discussion.
I did it again.
Did great. All right, all those in favor? Everybody. Lovely.
Last one. And this is different from all those others because this is from the building fund. So when we were talking about the audit and we were talking about surplus, Tim has a nice big list of projects that we need to start chipping away at from the building fund. And we've been trying to get this really lined up for 2 years, honestly. Starting with a 5-year plan, coming up with some priorities for the next year or two, and then getting buildings and grounds into a good pattern of reviewing those priorities and really deciding what we need to do. So if you're interested in what are those priority projects, let me see that 5-year plan. I can get those to you if you want those, but I would highly recommend go to a B&G meeting, because those, I think, are important conversations that we're starting to have right now. We, like Stan just said, $550,000 that we've tried to be mindful of. How do we not put a strain on our taxpayers by saying, well, let's go do a multi-million-dollar bond because we have a lot of work to do in district? How do we take, wow, there's some surplus, here's something we didn't spend because we struggled to hire somebody, for example. Well, we have this funding that's surplus. How do we use that to take care of some of the deferred maintenance that we've really had for, I don't know, Stan, what would you say? A decade?
Since I've been here.
Okay, yeah. There's a lot of deferred maintenance. We did a very large performance bond project that made a lot of our buildings more energy efficient. That was great work to do, but the maintenance, the upkeep, we haven't done. So we need to start chipping away at that. And I like that the Finance Committee has done good planning to think about how do we do that, not asking more from our taxpayers. So that surplus funding is a great way that we can do some of these medium-sized projects, these $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 projects without going to folks to ask for more. So with that said, we have one priority project that B&G looked at. And the way that process works is the Buildings and Grounds Committee will be making those decisions to bring forward to the full board. So if you're really interested in one of those priority projects coming to the full board, start talking to your B&G folks and pay attention to those minutes and those meetings, because those are going to live in Buildings and Grounds until Buildings and Grounds approve something to come to the board. The special ed funding pieces and the food program funding pieces and the grant one, we'll bring those to the full board. I thought there was a lot of value in B&G looking at those Monday because there were so many. But in the future, if we have a grant project, we're not always gonna start it with B&G because we don't have to. But that building fund, I really want everybody to be clear, that building fund is not something that Tim goes and spends or Stan spends or I spend. That building fund is really Buildings and Grounds. That's their pot of funding to think about how do we take care of the district. Fair? So this is the first one, and I would ask that somebody make a motion to contract with telescoping stands to purchase new bleachers for our multipurpose room at the high school.
I'll
At a
make the
cost
motion.
of, thank you, $62,679.
You do a second?
I'll second.
So these are the bleachers that are in the smaller gym that are currently, the ones that are there now don't work. And I think
Dangerous.
are
Unsafe.
They've had,
Unsafe.
there are injuries, right? We've
Yeah,
at least at this
couple
point.
minor
It
injuries.
sounds like they're condemned, basically.
So whether we approve these tonight or not, they will be removed.
They will be, so there'll either be no bleachers or new bleachers is the choice.
And I think Tim probably shared on Monday, that doesn't mean like, oh no, you better do something or else. We can make that multipurpose room work without bleachers. There are things we can do to still have events in there.
Lawn
So-
chairs.
Oh, we'll-
Yeah, right, bring your own.
Not the same.
But one of the things Tim talked about is that, and I wasn't quite clear on this, but the gym at Clarendon is not being used now, and so the elementary school students are using that multipurpose room for basically their gym and for
And we
games.
also use it, and Brian can correct me, we also use it for AAU starting
Yes, we do.
March, April.
In May, and they,
Which generates revenue for
I
us.
think you
Yeah.
said about
So-
$1,000
Yeah.
probably.
so
Busy
it-
facility.
Yeah, so, so it's used for games and things where you would want bleachers for people to come in. I mean, you could bring lawn chairs, but that would take up half the floor probably. And these are electric, apparently, they go.
And if you think about adding something like this to your budget, you know, that you're approaching, you know, if you'd round up to a penny on your tax rate. So great to think about the building fund for these types of things, because that doesn't shift your tax rate when we're using the building fund. Any other questions? or
Well,
thoughts,
also,
or-
it just sounds to me as a kind of an essential move in terms of risk mitigation.
Well, that's why they're getting removed no matter what.
Right, but
because-
something,
yeah,
nature abhors a vacuum, something will take their place, and if it's improvised.
Yeah, might be
Right, it might be
dangerous.
more
Maybe that's not so
risky.
great.
And this also,
Good
I think
point.
this bid also includes the removal and disposal of the old ones, is that right?
The removal it does, the disposal is still up to the school to provide dumpsters.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Okay, fantastic. And I think awesome that we're able to get these moving, because some of this stuff has been in the works for a while. Did B&G set a next meeting?
But we're
Oh, we're not there
we're
yet.
in
We're not there
buildings.
yet. Sorry. Sorry.
Brian,
It felt like we were.
I know, it did.
The next thing is the Tinmouth lease.
oh, right.
So Gail left, but Gail had found, actually, way back in October, where you had given me the authority to sign a lease anyway. And I was thinking we didn't get there. I thought we maybe just talked about it in
I know.
committee.
And I didn't look back far enough. I was one meeting
Yeah.
too far before I found it.
And Josh shared that with me. So technically, you don't need to authorize me to sign a lease, because you've already done that. But there are a lot of new members here. So I think it's worth going over the lease and sharing where we are anyway.
And just talking about why we're doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So, and the board can decide if you want to.
Because we could rescind your right to do it.
So you could grant it again if you want. A lot of time's passed, so. We are close to having things in order. We are moving forward on the asbestos remediation plan, and that might take about a week. So maybe end of next week. We're hopeful that we're going to have that all in place. So talking about risk management and VSBA, we partnered with VSBA to say, if we're going to lease a space, what do we need to have in place so that we're covered and we're okay? Part of that, so part of the needing our asbestos plan in place was, partnering with VSBA to make sure that we're using the building in a way that's safe.
I have a question about
Yep.
asbestos. In the lease, as I read it,
Yeah.
there was a question
Yep.
about asbestos, and it said none known. Is that inaccurate, since
Oh.
you're doing an asbestos
Abatement?
abatement? Maybe somebody just checked, it's like yes or no.
Is that
I read
the lead thing at the end of the lease?
Oh, maybe it was lead and not
Maybe.
asbestos.
It-
No, I don't know. Let me, oh, gosh.
It's attached, yeah.
It's
Let's pull that
attached to
up.
where? I mean, I keep losing things.
If it's the thing all the way at the end, that's lead-based paint, lead paint hazards. If
Okay,
it-
you're right.
Okay, no,
You're
fair
right.
enough.
In my
Well, I
mind-
didn't know if there was something in the middle that we had missed,
No, I
but,
think,
okay.
do you have it in front of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was at the beginning. It was one of the first questions, or first check things. Maybe it was lead, but
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing
I don't,
asbestos.
yeah, I don't see asbestos addressed anywhere in the.
okay.
Well, great to check.
Yeah, just check that. If I could, which email is it on?
Oh, it's on the materials. If you've got the
Oh,
huge
for the
packet,
board.
it is in there.
For the
Yeah.
board, not the, I'm looking at B and G, that's fine.
Okay. And then electrician is still wrapping up hardwired smoke detectors. So those were the last things from VSBA that we needed to have in place. And we are hopeful that both of those are going to happen fairly quickly now, because we had a target date of January, and then the asbestos testing came back and it didn't look great. So, here we are in March, a little bit delayed from what we were hoping, but we're far closer to it than we were in January.
And then there was a second test that showed the signs were better for certain certain of the products or something like that, correct, right?
Yeah, they did do a second round of asbestos testing, so.
And it's-
It was lead paint,
Okay.
and in my
Okay.
mind,
Okay.
they're
No,
both
no worries.
bad.
No worries.
Not good.
No worries. Any questions about?
I do have several, if
Yep.
you have time. So overall, it's a great-looking lease.
And VSBA and legal reviewed the lease too. So we've
Perfect.
had somebody go over that with a fine tooth comb.
That was going to be my first question.
Great, great.
Number 3,
The answer is yes. Can I get that one right too, before you ask it?
the term, it doesn't have, like, typically there's.
Yeah. We
There's
have,
wording in there that says we have the first right of refusal.
thank you. We have not set the term because we are still waiting to see where things are. So if we get the asbestos plan in place and we have the hardwired smoke detectors, we'll be starting probably ASAP, and the term will run through June. So it will be a short-term lease to start, and then we would be talking in June about a lease for the next year.
Gotcha.
And that lease would be 10 months. We wouldn't be leasing it over the summer.
So that answers my number 2. It says rent.
Awesome.
And it goes on, and it doesn't have, like,
Yeah.
it says you're going to just continue paying rent monthly.
So it would only be the 10 months that we are actually,
And then
in the school
number
using.
9, it says use of premise.
yes.
It says 7:40 a.m., which makes sense because
Yep.
school starts at 8:15.
Yep.
And it says till 4 p.m. But don't we typically have people come in and clean and, like,
What do you mean?
Like
So
you say,
you're-
janitorial services at that
I think
space.
it
could be
says somewhere on weekends.
They'll
or
do that.
Once a week or something.
They've already determined when it's going to be cleaned and how it's going to be cleaned, and that is addressed somewhere else in the lease.
so then the very last one,
Mhm.
since I missed the janitorial, is number 19. It says no pets,
Yeah.
which makes sense.
Yeah.
But as I've gone around various facilities,
Yeah.
we do keep terrariums
Yeah.
and fish and
Yeah.
various other,
Yeah.
which clearly doesn't fit.
We won't be there. We won't be there. And
Answers
some of
all my
these,
questions.
yeah, no, awesome questions. Some of these are, and smoking, smoking of any kind is strictly prohibited. Well, everywhere we have school, it's prohibited. So some of these are really just standard lease language pieces that we left a lot of boilerplate things because it didn't hurt. And we tweaked the ones that we needed to make them appropriate to our arrangement. So, great questions.
And then the other thing
Great
is that
questions.
we will be, this summer, we're adding internet, or like we're going to add
That's in the
technology
works
that
to be able
space
to, yeah,
be able to
it's
do
not so far away that we can't get some kind of signal there. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions, comments?
Is this going to run into the same problem that you have over with the old SU office and?
That's not going to
in
have a
terms of
phone that you can,
communication?
yeah, we will have, that will be a challenge, absolutely.
And then, because that'll be,
Yeah.
because everybody has everybody has radios here, and does the radio signal go that far?
Those radios, okay, thank you,
Think it
Jen, for
does.
the head nod. I think they would, but they do, great. Yeah, so radio is probably going to be the real
mechanism.
motive, yeah. Because we would have no plans to do that, because at that point,
You don't own that building.
yeah, and we need to be really mindful of, if we're using taxpayer dollars, we don't want to be improving a property that is not our property with taxpayer dollars.
And technically, we don't own this building at all.
Oh, right.
The community.
Yeah.
Yeah, or actually.
We don't own it in the
whole
whole,
thing.
the whole building.
leased?
Yeah,
Technically.
for adult, yeah.
Okay.
Deal. Right.
No, good questions, good questions. Anything else?
I don't think so. And I don't think, if everyone's comfortable, we don't have to take action, but if you're all, I think Nick was the only other one, right? So we can vote and give him another authorization. He already has authorization.
So somebody can make a motion, or we can move on?
We can move on.
Move on.
Okay.
Lovely. Okay, the next thing on the item is the VSBA Code of Ethics.
I don't have to talk. Thank you, Jeff.
I hope everybody got a chance to just read the Code of Ethics and to sign it. Again, this Code of Ethics is part of, when we become board members, it's part of the agreement that we sign up for. And this is the first year that we're actually doing the thing that we're supposed to be doing. And I really appreciate everybody taking the time to read it. And I hope everybody was able to look at the board policies, the A policies, because those are the ones that are like, they affect us directly. Everything else is us kind of affecting other people. mostly. And so did anybody have any questions or anything about any of that? Because I think we can just move on past it, if everyone's okay.
Have there been any areas that you feel that have not been clear to board members or?
I think there was a period of time where people, especially like the bottom part of voicing opinions respectfully, and I think there was a period of time in this board that is actually before me, just by a little bit, where it was harder for people to have communications. And I think part of this was a response of that and just making sure, because we actually, one of the things that it felt like when I was a new board member was that it didn't feel like there was a norms established for how we're behaving. And so like this was just kind of like the framework for how those norms can be just kind of reinforced and focused without having it be like literally like, a policy point or something like that. And the other genesis was literally I was looking for something else while looking up for another policy, and I found this and then read our bylaws and we're like, oh, we should be doing this. And this is a thing. And it's just one of those things that whether or not it's true or not, it's one of those nudge things where it's like reading a document, signing a document. We all have now acknowledged that we should be good community members and we should be good board members. And so that was that was the part of it. And the other part of just letting everyone know, especially people who aren't in policy, for those A policies, like if you don't necessarily know they're there, you're not going to go look for them. So, and I didn't go look for it when I first joined the board, and then I joined policy, and I was like, oh, these things I should be very familiar with these things.
And
at least.
my understanding was they were kind of all over and now they're in one place.
Right, yeah, so, and hopefully the website is getting better and better, and so that when you go to the policies right now, it's a pretty long list, and the list won't be shorter, but it'll be organized in a way that's much more
User-friendly.
User-friendly. And for future board members, we use a lot of models, policy, so it'll be easy for future board members to do anything.
And this will be good on a recurring basis, even if we stay on for another 10 years, 5 years, however many years, to just revisit every year to say, oh, these are the things that I should be doing.
Well, and are they working? I mean, why have a policy if
Well, I was
something
thinking
happens
these
and you
code
look
of
at the
ethics.
policy? Yeah, or the code of ethics, but you have a policy and things happen, you look at the policy and you go, this doesn't cover that, you can.
Yeah, exactly, and if.
Or even the board, or even the code of ethics, we didn't think about that ethic.
Yeah, exactly, and that's part of we're using the code of, this is boilerplate from the VSBA.
Yes, yeah.
I'm terrible at acronyms. And if there's something in here that in the future we want to change or do things, that's totally in our power to do.
The second bullet point from the bottom, what constitutes an executive session?
Yeah, so we're actually going to go into one later today.
Okay.
And so it's basically a period of time where there's some conflict.
It's not public.
It's not public, it's really the basis of it. So we'll go into a separate space. There's no minutes and there's no actions taken while we're in that space.
Okay.
But we can take actions when we come out based on what was discussed.
Okay. That is helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Great. Does anyone have any other comments or anything? Okay. Then I think we can, let's move on.
I just have a
yeah.
question. So I have to sign something? Is that-
Yeah, you do.
So, yeah, sorry.
Who do we give it to?
I do have
I was going to pass them to Brian, and he was going to put them in a folder, and,
and if anybody wanted a copy, I've got them.
I can sign mine right now.
Sign it.
fantastic.
I signed mine and didn't
I just
bring it
didn't,
back.
Did we need one down that way?
Sarah, you want one?
I need one.
Yeah.
Thank
Sure.
you.
I have one, thank you.
Pat is already prepared.
One more, please. Thank you.
I think Pat already has one.
I still need one.
Lovely. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, I'd just make the comment that I know one of my personal kind of statements when I tried to get here was to turn the dial down, listen to people that don't agree with you, and recognize that they probably have something of value to say as well. And, that obviously is clearly, it's a huge problem in the whole country right now, which we can't fix, but we can fix what's here.
Exactly.
So, baby steps, right?
Exactly. The next thing is, we just wanted to go over, because some people weren't at the last meeting, when we kind of assigned everyone their jobs as committee members. And what's strange, the amount of committees that we have versus the amount of people that we have is always going to make it odd. And some people are going to have more and some people are going to have less. And there's some, negotiations only exists when there's negotiations to be had. Most of the time, there is no negotiation meetings. And the other caveat is usually the chair is going to be on less committees because they generally have more work in other places that they're doing. And the vice chair usually does it too, but I'm the only representative from Tinmouth, so I chose to stay on more. And so as long as everyone's generally comfortable with the committees that they're on right now, it would be great. We can do some swapping if you want, but if you just want to stay where you are at the moment and just, see everyone, or if there's anything that anybody that really feels passionate about being on something else.
Is this the place to make,
now.
to make those requests?
Yeah, if you want, so this is the time.
Well, I did send an email to Andrea.
Okay.
About, and maybe this is a bad idea, but since the negotiations committee is, it's very active right now, but won't be later. I was actually suggesting that I not be on the policy committee, because some people only have 2 committees and some have 3. And I think right now, because I'm still very busy with work, being on 2 committees might be better for me. And I know that Gray had an interest in the policy committee, and he's only on 2.
Well, and I'm also basically retired, so my availability to take on a bit more is greater, so.
You off policy, you on policy.
Correct.
Yeah.
But, I don't want to be a slacker.
No, I think that's perfectly fine. And especially because you have a person that doesn't, wants to take your place.
Well, not only
that's
that, I
fine.
think when negotiations committee goes
Dwindles.
away, then there are other assignments out there waiting.
I would be very
Right.
open to having another.
And again,
committee
you can go, all board members can go to any committee meetings, you just don't have a vote for it, and you can go to the if there's executive sessions and everything, you can do all of that.
That's what I was wondering about the ad hoc committee, is that something that I could attend
Anybody
if I'm not
can.
Yeah,
on
for sure.
a committee? 'Cause
You just wouldn't be a voting
Voting,
member.
that's fine.
All are encouraged.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
Thank you.
no problem.
I think we probably, outside of reorganization,
We
where
have
we're
to do a
doing
vote
all
for
of
that,
this,
yeah.
I think we should have a motion in action.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue with that being one motion to remove Sarah and add Gray.
I'll make that motion.
So second? Pat seconds. All right, any discussion?
Pat seconded.
Yeah, all right, all those in favor? You better vote.
I wasn't sure whether I should recuse myself.
No,
with
it's okay.
Conflict of interest.
All right, great. Does anybody else, and so the other thing that for new members or anything, if you had any questions about any of the committees, we could talk about that now too, if you'd so like. If you want to look up the charge of each committee, they're in the bylaws. And I don't know if they're.
And Brian sent me
And they,
the page, I think, where they are. So.
great. Excellent. All right, so then I think we can move on to committee reports. Personnel. Len's not here. Are you going to do it?
Yeah, I'll do. We have some contracts, and I had emailed Len to say, hey, can we bring these contracts to full board without a personnel meeting? Because normally these would go through personnel committee, but we will not have had one, and I think there are some good ones that we definitely want to get taken care of. So I'm looking at, we got a couple of 12As. So If you're looking at attachments, I try to do the number of the agenda item to make it a little easier
Oh,
to
is
track
that
down
what
which
that
is
is?
which. Yeah, so the 12A ones,
Awesome.
I try. It doesn't always work. Doesn't always work. So first
I'm
up,
getting up to speed.
First up, we have a long-term substitute, a letter of employment that we would offer to Brendan Toohey, who is a former Mill River grad. That is a long-term sub position as a custodian at Wallingford, and that would start near the end of the month and run through June. So I would ask for a motion to offer that letter of employment to him.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second it.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, great, all good.
Next up, we have a contract for Riley Steinauer. That is a teaching contract for next year for Wallingford, so classroom position there. We have had a long-term sub, I believe, in the third grade classroom, so this would be a hire to cover that third grade classroom full-time official. So
Can I
I'd
ask a question?
For a
well,
motion,
let's-
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give me a motion.
Okay, I move that we accept.
Second?
Carol, Sarah.
Discussion.
Discussion. But it specifically doesn't say Wallingford on the contract, but that's kind of the agreed.
Yeah, we.
Position.
Well, yeah, when we hired for it, that's what we hired for, but our contracts never designate the location.
Okay.
Good question.
Does that mean that teachers can move between, sort of
You can
seamlessly
be-
between?
You can be reassigned.
Reassigned, yeah.
You can be reassigned. We always ask for volunteers because that's a big move sometimes.
But from a paperwork perspective,
Yep.
it's seamless?
They're all district employees these days, yeah. Good question.
right.
Other questions? Sorry.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous.
Then we have, we have another teacher,
Clancy.
Carrie Clancy, for English at Mill River.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
Is this a replacement or a new position, or, you know?
Let me think through that, because I just blanked on that.
Mill River?
Yeah. Oh, retirement.
It's a retirement.
Yeah.
Where did you find that?
All the attachment.
You gotta look for the +9 on the email.
It's 12D. This one's 12A Clancy contract.
It's
So
quite a
this is
resume.
also for next year?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Okay, I've got one more. 12A Anderson. So this is letter of employment for support staff position, central business office. This is IT. This is for next year. We do have somebody who is not returning at the end of this year. So we're trying to fill that position for next year. So I would ask for a motion to offer the contract, the letter of employment to Ryan Anderson.
I make that motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? So this is one of the in-house IT people that we have, that we used to contract this out, and now it's in-house.
Exactly right.
Okay, any more discussion? No? All right, all those in favor?
Okay, and I believe
Can I
that is all.
ask just a general
personnel.
quick question? Do we have a lot of open positions still, Brian, that you're looking for?
Right
Well, I
now-
know there's a principal at Tinmouth.
Yeah,
but-
no, great question. Right now, we have posted special education for next year. Do we have anything else posted for next year beyond that? I don't believe so.
Aren't there?
We do have vacancies that are paraeducator and special educator vacancies that are current and are still posted for this year.
That's probably like 6 or 7?
Yep. We do have a math position and a social studies position at the high school that are also retirees, so we're trying to fill those spots. The social studies was part driver's ed, so we've been sorting through both of those. Yep. We've almost had some driver's ed success, but then something fell through, so we're exploring the next thing there. So math, social studies, driver's ed. I think that's it that we have posted currently.
And is the science teacher that we have that came from, are they staying?
Absolutely.
Lovely.
Yep.
I have a quick question. Looking at the contract, setting aside the question of salary, how does that benefit, just in general terms, how does that benefit package compare to what the teachers have?
Oh, for a support staff person?
Yeah.
The healthcare is actually going to be the same package. It's going to be 80/20, and they get to choose from the same range
Okay,
of
so it's the
plans.
same, in other words.
Yeah, and Stan, are there any differences these days between benefits with support staff and teachers?
The only difference would be the HRA is more for the support staff, more is covered on the HRA.
And what is an HRA?
Health reimbursement account. So for a single support staff, the out-of-pocket expense is $2,500. The HRA covers $2,200 of that, and for a family or two-person, it's $4,400, and the out-of-pocket is $5,000. So where for teachers, it's $4,000 for $4,000 for a family or two-person, and $1,900 for single.
So I guess my question was, is it generally comparable to what the teachers are doing? And it sounds like it generally is comparable. That really is my answer right
And
there.
they both are members of the state.
Perfect. Thank you.
Lovely. Is that all you have for personnel?
The only thing I'll mention is we do have a meeting before our next board meeting, which is April 3rd. So 4/3 at 6 p.m. for personnel.
Nick, I think it's your time to shine.
Policy.
Policy.
Ooh, I closed my cheat sheet. So I'm going to lump a couple of these together. I would like to make a motion that we send B6, B7, B8, and B9 for a second read.
Well, those are going to be, we're going to be adopting those tonight because they did go, they were warned in the Herald.
So we are doing the second reading
Doing the
right
second
now.
reading.
Doing the
So
second
motion to
read now.
adopt is what we
So a
want,
motion
yeah.
to adopt. So I will make a motion to adopt B6, B7, B8, and B9.
Second?
Sure.
Excellent. Discussion.
I'm going to assume this has been going on for a while, so we don't want to start any new.
If there's questions.
Well, the only question I guess I had was, have these policies been revised, or are they just being readopted?
Any one in particular?
Well, no, in general. I mean, if
So
we...
in general, for the policy committee, we review each policy, and we look at them in context to the VSBA policy, and we say, ooh, the VSBA policy is better than ours, is not better than ours, or we're trying to follow all the VSBA policies to the letter of the law. And then there are some exceptions, like here's the VSBA policy, and ours has this one paragraph, which we really like, so we're going to keep that in ours. And because we're reorganizing our policies, almost all of them are getting new numbers.
Okay.
So we're readopting them and renumbering them, which is why you're seeing a ton of policies.
And in the past, so that's one, like, just moving everything into the same category is very
yeah.
handful. The other thing that may or may not have been happening before me and Nick's time was they might have been looking at the policy and not bringing it to the board, and so the date of like the last review, there's tons that are from consolidation. They may have been looked at in the past. They're supposed to be a rotating period of time where you look at them.
So some of
And-
them still have dates of 2012, 2013, and we're like, was that the last time this policy was ever looked at?
So, and if we think specifically about B6, B7, B8, and B9, I think B6 had minor revisions. That's resignations.
Oh, okay.
And Jody, jump in if you want to.
So B6 had a rename, removal of some old references to laws at the bottom.
And then there was something in red that we just changed back to.
And I think 7, 8, and 9 were just updates, not changes, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's happens to be we've been in a period of a lot of policies coming to the board all at once because we can be going through it. A lot of times, if there is something where we're actually like really looking at the policy to do a change, like then that'll be like one will come, and there's a lot more discussion
Not
happening for
substantive
particular
changes.
ones.
And do policies get looked at, and then, for some reason, I'm big on this, you find out, well, this policy doesn't cover this situation. So then, does that kind of trigger a review by the policy committee?
There have been times where we have asked and we've said, hey, can you bring this one to policy to look at? Because we think it needs some help because we're trying to use it and we're having some challenges.
Cool.
And then sometimes there are things that pop up from the Agency of Education or the
Right, they
legislature
change
where
their
we go,
stuff.
oh, we need to fast track this because we are now being told we need a policy in place for this, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have no problem reaching out to policy to say, hey, look at this, please.
Right. And usually
Good
in
question.
those cases, when it's like coming down from the state, usually the association has a policy that we're going to model and it's going to be close to the legal. But I'm not on policy anymore, so I don't.
So did we have a motion? Can I make a motion to,
We did have
We're in
motion.
the motion.
We're discussing.
We're discussing now.
For the 4.
We
So
made a motion,
now-
we made a discussion.
a
or-
second and discussion? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just,
And so now, does anyone else want to? All right, so then we're going to, all those in favor of adopting B6, B7, B8, B9? Aye. Fantastic, everybody.
On to the next round. This is a motion for first read to adopt. So these will be posted in the paper following a
If-
success.
If we, exactly right.
So these get a little tricky. So these are listed because we're changing the numbers, right? So a motion to adopt B10, which was formerly E8, B11, which was formerly D15, and B12, which was formerly D17.
Second? Because you just Nick, Carol. All right, discussion.
I noticed on B10, it starts out with, it is the policy of Shrewsbury School District. We might want to change that to.
Yeah, we might.
That's what, right, that's what looking at them is, you know?
Good eye.
And so like, that's one of those things of like,
When you look at something a lot, you don't see it.
well, and also of just like, has this been looked at since consolidation? Like, you know?
That's probably my mistake.
Oh, it's just a typo, probably.
Policy committee request changes, I pull up a Word document, and so I probably just pulled up the wrong version, but I bet if you look on our website right now, it's the Mill River one, so I probably just pulled up too old of a Word doc.
I believe it.
Sorry about that.
And that's only a rename anyway. So what Jody's saying is when we went to rename it, we
pulled out
probably
the
just
wrong
pulled the
one.
wrong one to rename. So our existing E8 policy on the website, all we're doing is renaming to B10, no other changes. The D15, I believe, is the same thing, renamed to B11, no changes otherwise. And
well, I'm looking at the term tobacco product, and I'm reading it
Yep.
really fast. I
Okay.
don't see vapes on there.
yeah.
Is that something, well, the policy committee, I guess, could look at that, but,
Or is that tobacco
Well,
substitute?
so the point of what we're doing right now is for you to make comments on, like, you know, so so policy does the groundwork, and then in theory, we're coming to you, or they're coming to you with, say, hey, look at this. And then also sending it out for public.
okay, so that would be my comment. Is this where vapes would go, vape pens, and also if it is, someone just said it's a tobacco substitute instead of tobacco, would
Or
we want
paraphernalia,
to add that into tobacco slash?
So the first thing that you'd have, so that's, you're looking in definitions, number 3, right? Is that?
I think under.
Oh,
policy.
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
Well, I was looking at
Because-
the bottom, the footnote.
Right, so the definition it goes to the Vermont State Code of 1,001.4.
So maybe that's already been changed.
So, right, so that would be where you would look up to say, okay, what classifies as a tobacco product?
Okay.
And I wasn't at this meeting, so I don't know. But that, so a lot of times, that is part of it, of saying what is like the official designation of it. You want to, are you Googling it?
No. Sorry.
That's where I was trying to get.
For every one.
I was going to
And seeing
VSBA
if they have
model
made any updates.
There.
Because they've got well-paid lawyers who sort through all of that. And
Love to
so
do that.
when we are bringing you stuff, we're making sure that it's the most updated according to the VSBA, if there is a comparable policy.
Gotcha.
Now, B12 is a little different, though. B12 has had a final paragraph removed. So D17 renamed to B12 and removing a final paragraph. So the other ones don't have substantive changes, but that D17 one did have a paragraph removed that the policy committee had talked about, and that's their recommendation, so.
Would it be okay to just tell you what that was?
Yeah.
So, that was a small paragraph about how employees should follow ethical codes of conduct and can be brought to the board for any moral issues. And so the policy committee was concerned about kind of the lack of definition of what's, I think it was moral or some comparable word. And since the last review of that one, we added an entire policy that outlines the ethical conduct of employees, with students, and with the community. And so we thought that it was not necessarily clearest to keep a vague paragraph at the bottom of another policy when we have an entire policy now.
Makes sense.
Thanks, Jody.
Okay, does anybody else want to make any comments or anything? All right, so for first reading, B10, B11, and B12, all those in favor? All right,
Okay,
everybody?
And so folks know what happens next is I work with Rebecca, our administrative assistant. She gets those in the Herald so that it's warned appropriately, that folks know which board meeting we're going to actually adopt them. So if folks wanted to request those from our office, they could. Then they could come to the meeting and give you their input on it before you adopt them. So policy has that extra step that a lot of the other work we do doesn't have, just so
But they will get
everybody's-
sent on the night.
Yeah, we'll have them in our
Like
board
this
packet,
way,
yes,
okay.
correct. So you'll get really used to seeing policies come up in your board packet twice.
Okay.
And that's why.
Good to know.
You got one left, Nick?
Oh, I do. I will, oops, gotta get back to where I was. Make a motion to rescind policy D16.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but that was the one that kind of referenced what was an existing law. And I believe the policy committee said, since it's not part of the VSBA model policies and it references a law, and often if there's an existing state or federal law, we don't need a board policy for something, that was the reasoning for the rescind?
Correct. We're trying to eliminate redundancy.
So do you need a second? A second.
Yes, lovely. Is anybody else, any other discussion?
Just for clarity, this one will come up a second time to rescind. We're just voting on moving it forward.
Lovely. All right, all those in favor? Great, thanks, everybody. Okay, that's, do you have another meeting?
I do. It is, give me a moment, it will be Tuesday, the 9th, at 5:30.
Lovely.
April 9th, right? Yeah, April 9th.
Yes,
April 9th. You said 4:30?
5:30.
5:30, thank you.
All right, buildings and grounds.
Oh, that's me again.
That's you again.
As we discussed a few moments ago, we spent a lovely afternoon with Connie and Tim. We did most of those review of budget items. We also talked about some of the 5-year plan, and then delightfully asked Brian to send it out to all the new members, which was great. It's a lot to digest and look at. They're also reviewing, and it's not up for discussion or vote or anything, but they're also talking about how the radio system that is used in the buses is going end of life. It will work for this school year, but come next school year, it won't be available. So hopefully for next meeting, we'll have something for the board to vote on. Our next B&G meeting will be April 22nd at 5 p.m.
April 22nd, 5 p.m. Great.
Lovely.
And awesome to see that work moving. I think that's great. I'll say it again.
Yeah, it'll be great. We'll have meetings. Community engagement?
Community engagement. We had our first meeting tonight, and it was a very lively meeting. We did not get to do some of the things we wanted to do, so we have scheduled a meeting for April 10th. But after that date, our regular meetings will be the third Wednesday of the month before the board meeting. So our following will be May something, whatever that is. Because of spring break, there's no board meeting in April, so it'll be whatever the first Wednesday in May is. I have to open a calendar.
May 1st.
Oh, there you go.
No, the third.
Oh, the third Wednesday.
Third Wednesday, so
Okay,
it'll be the
sorry,
15th.
15. At what time? What time?
6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Excellent. Negotiations is me, and we're still in negotiating.
And we're meeting tomorrow,
We're
right?
gonna meet tomorrow. Oh, yeah, for a real, yeah.
At 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
I think that's right.
And again, anybody is welcome to join. Most of it will be an executive session. Okay.
And if you're not a member, you still can go into the
100%.
executive session?
You can be invited in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, because like when we do an executive session as this full board, like we can have Brian be there, or we can say don't be there.
Right. Okay, good.
Okay, finance. You want to read the numbers for me?
Yep, absolutely. I don't mind doing that at all. So, for payroll dated 3/20/24, I have a regular payroll in the amount of $619,216.17 that I would ask for a motion from the board to
I'll
approve.
make a motion.
Second?
Second it.
Any discussion? No? And just for anybody that wasn't at those meetings before, you got an email from Karen probably yesterday that is all of this information. So you don't have to digest all of it right now if you don't want to. All right, all those in favor? Great, unanimous.
So then we've got some payments from different funds. We have one from the general fund in the amount of $315,764.77. Another general fund payment in the amount of $14,813.96. After-school program payment in the amount of $456.77. Lunch program, the amount of $53,102.06, totaling $384,137.56. We have student activities from Mill River in the amount of $3,225. Student activities Shrewsbury in the amount of $256.25, totaling $3,481.25 from our activity funds. So I'd ask for a motion to approve as read.
You want the second or the first?
I'll second it, sure.
Oh, we keep tally.
Well, you gotta pay the people.
I don't-
Call the question?
Oh, yeah, yeah, any discussion? No? All those in favor?
No next meeting.
The next meeting is
Oh,
May
yeah, no,
1.
you're right, we did set one, but it's a ways
just
off.
for
I was
reorg.
looking for it. You're right, we did.
May 1.
Thank you, Nick.
At 6.
May 1 at 6?
6 PM.
And its primary
I didn't-
purpose
I
is
didn't
just
drag my calendar
reorg.
far
Yep.
enough.
Yep.
Where is it? Now we're into Transact, other legal business. I'll just say that for the ad hoc committee, we did do a reorganization. I am still the chair of it. We have been doing non-quorum interviews. And it looks like we're on progress to finish by our date, whether we like it or not. Is there any other legal business? Do you have anything else? Anybody else have anything else? All right, agenda building.
Okay, so we are looking at, sorry, let me pull that up. April, we're looking at our quarterly sports update. So April 3rd meeting, Mill River, hybrid meeting. I would recommend sports update on the agenda.
What is the sports update?
So that would be our athletic director coming and giving us some updates on number of students participating, things like that.
Okay, got it.
We also have scheduled looking at our board goals, which I think we had talked
Yeah,
about.
definitely
Let's
need
do
to do
that
that.
at Mill River, so that we can
Have everybody.
have as many people there as possible. So we would look at our board goals and have a little bit of a conversation around where we are and how we're doing and what we need to keep doing or start doing to be on track for summer. We had bumped intervention and pre-K and after-school from January. There were some things that we wanted to tackle in January. I actually think it was our goals conversation we spent a lot more time on than we anticipated. So we could do intervention and after-school on April 3rd, if that works.
I think it should be okay.
So that would be kind of our academic presentation. So for new members, we try to typically look at what's a presentation that we're doing, and then what are some of the business things that we do to balance out a meeting, and we really aim for starting at 7, ending at 9, and we've had a pretty good track record of doing the work we need to do, but keeping it balanced, not going till, 11 some nights and 8 other nights. So I think with sports, board goals will be a big one, intervention after school. I think that actually puts us at a pretty big meeting. That's all we had on our tentative agenda to accomplish, though. Are there other things that we are forgetting that we maybe should do? April 3rd?
We'll need a Tinmouth update.
Yeah,
Right. So
and I
that'll be
think
on
we
there.
can do that under B&G maybe.
Okay.
Is that okay?
No, that was fine.
Okay. Typically, we don't do a meeting during our spring break week. February break, we typically have our annual meeting, so that break pulls people in. We pull people in for a meeting on that break, but spring break, we try to avoid. Is that reasonable, everybody? Okay. So we'd meet April 3rd, and then our next full meeting would be May 1st, actually. Just kind of thinking a little bit down the road. Okay, that's all I got.
Excellent. So we need an executive session. Do you have that wording?
Yeah, we do have a need for executive session for discussion of school security and student disciplinary action.
Can I have a motion from somebody? I'll make motion.
Second.
Second? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.